I'm Laura, and welcome to Adventures in Creating, where I will take you on an adventure to create something, hopefully awesome. Today, we are going to be making buffalo cauliflower. This is one of my favorite ways to eat vegetables. It is so delicious, and it's very inexpensive and fairly healthy too. I like cauliflower. It's a lower carb vegetable, which is great if you're watching your carbs. And if you have absolutely zero ingredients on hand, meaning no oil, no salt, no pepper, you are looking at spending about $20 altogether. But if you're like a lot of homes that have a few basic on hand ingredients, so you might have some garlic powder on hand, you might have some oil on hand, and if all you need to do is buy the cauliflower and the hot sauce, then you're looking at under $5 to make a great side dish or even main course dish, depending on how much you like it. I will be showing you step by step how to make this. So please come along and join me on my adventure today. Getting started with our recipe today, what you see before you is what you will need in order to make our dish, which is going to be buffalo cauliflower bites. For this recipe, you will need cauliflower. I am using 2 heads of cauliflower for myself. You will also need a vegetable oil. You could use olive oil instead. Either is fine. You will need some salt, some pepper, some garlic powder, and onion powder. You will also need a mild hot sauce and some butter. If you are vegan or sensitive to butter, say for cholesterol reasons, you could substitute instead of butter a different oil such as coconut oil or just more vegetable oil, whatever you prefer cooking with. You will also need a cutting board. This will be to cut up our cauliflower. You will need a container to bake the cauliflower in. You will also need a knife or some other sharp item to cut the cauliflower. You're also going to need 2 bowls. One should be microwave safe, such as glass or a sturdy plastic that says it's microwave safe, and another bowl as well. You will also need some measuring spoons, which I don't have pictured here, but I can grab them. Ta-da! Some measuring spoons. You will also need those. And of course, you will need an oven to bake your cauliflower bites. To begin our recipe, now that we have our ingredients assembled, we are going to need to take our cauliflower and cut it up. There's no way we could eat this as is. Way too big. So we are going to take our knife, and whenever you use a knife, always make sure you are being careful. You don't want to cut your fingers or anything else that is not meant to be cut. You are going to use my tips, which I think make cutting up cauliflower pretty easy and quick. And that is, we are going to cut it right in half. So cutting it in half, being careful again with your fingers and especially your thumb, we can see we've split this in 2. I am going to turn these over so they are on their flat side and cut them in half again, thus quartering our cauliflower. Now that we have 4 quarters, you can see here, let's see if you can see better. There we go. You can see the nice big thick portion, the stalk, and the leaves. We aren't going to want the leaves, so I will pull the leaves off and toss them in one of our 2 bowls. This just helps to keep our area organized. I have to remove these leaves anyways, and putting them into the bowl, it's an easy way to not have mess everywhere because, well, I tend to be messy. Now we still have this thick portion here. What I have found is if you carefully, and I apologize, you won't see this the best, but I cut around that stem, pulling that off. When I do that, then this cauliflower piece, it comes apart much easier than if I was cutting off each individual portion. So this, I will continue to cut these. I'm going to cut these now just down into about bite-sized pieces. You want them to be about the same size, mainly because they cook evenly then. You don't want some of your cauliflower to be fully done and some of it to still need to be cooked for a while. And just exercise caution, this is not a race. But you can see we have all these little pieces. They are roughly about bite size. I will put these into one of our bowls to store them so they are ready to be cooked. And I will continue to pull apart as well as cut up the different bits of cauliflower. And this here, I can pull apart some of these pretty easily. Then I'll get down to cutting to make sure they are correct. And I will continue to do this for each quarter of cauliflower. Fun thing about cauliflower, it is a delicious vegetable, and sometimes I don't think it gets enough attention. The reason it's so delicious is because it has a very mild flavor. What that means is you can make it taste like whatever you want. So if you prefer something that's going to taste, say, more in the Italian style, you can make that easily happen with cauliflower. You can do that with other vegetables, of course, but it's a little harder if it has a strong flavor to begin with. So I like cauliflower. Another fun fact, if you are at all carb conscious, say you may struggle with diabetes or just for your own overall health trying to eat fewer carbs, cauliflower is a great vegetable to eat. It is low in carb, which that is something I am often cautious with. So we've cut through all the parts. We still have this nice big stalk. Don't discard that. We will cut this up and bake this as we go. But I'm going to finish cutting up the rest of my cauliflower quarters, doing the same exact thing. Then I will cut up my other head of cauliflower. Once I've done that, I will meet you back for the next part. Now that we've cut up the 2 heads of cauliflower, you can see that my bowl is very full. We are going to also cut up the stalks. And before I do that, I need to remind you, or I don't think I mentioned it, please turn on your oven to preheat to 450 degrees. It's a bit of a higher temperature, but cauliflower is a little bit more on the fibrous side of vegetables, thus it needs that to kind of permeate and heat evenly through. Now with the stalks of the cauliflower left, the core or the center of it, you're just going to cut these into very small pieces. Why? Because they are dense and full of more fiber. When you cut, you're going to want to try and curl your finger, make sort of this claw shape, especially keeping your thumb back. So you can see I cut this first stalk here into fairly thin pieces. I'm going to then turn it and cut it thin again. As I said, just remember, keep your fingers back, be careful, be safe. So then we have little pieces like this. I am going to place those in the bowl with my cauliflower bits and proceed to cut up the rest of the stalks, exercising caution because these are a little oddly shaped. And I'm just going to go and cut, and I will be placing them all in my bowl. I will meet you after you have turned on your oven and finished cutting up the stalks of your cauliflower. Now I moved my cauliflower to my slightly larger bowl because it's a lot of food. Now as I did this, I put in also my stalks right in with the cauliflower after I cut them up, just because waste not, want not, might as well eat it. They're still good, still delicious, still nutritious, and they add to your meal to bulk it up. For me, I have a family. We always want to eat, so I like to stretch my meals as much as I can. Saves me time from not having to cook multiple times. You're going to take your vegetable oil and you are going to put in about a good 2 tablespoons. So you take your measuring spoons. Usually if it's a set, it's the biggest one is the tablespoon. And you just pour it in, sprinkle it right on top. 1 and 2. If it's a little extra, it's okay. It will not hurt. Then set your oil to the side. Make sure you put your lid on your oil because I have spilled this before, and that is a mess you don't want to clean up. After that, you're going to want to take your salt. You can use any kind of salt you prefer, whether you want a flavored salt, whether you want sea salt, large crystals, kosher, or just ordinary table salt. I'm going to use about a teaspoon. That's usually the next smallest measuring spoon if you're using a set like I have. And I just sprinkle that on across it. You can always add more if you prefer your food on the salty side, or less if you prefer not a lot of salt, or you need to watch your salt intake for your diet. You will want some just because it adds to the flavor. Salt sort of brings out the flavor of food, so it is very important, but you can do much less. quick note, if you like your foods really salty, don't add too much. I say this because you can always add more salt. You cannot take it away as easily. Trust me, I've done this before. Then we're going to take our pepper. I'm going to take a half teaspoon, which is the next size down. And I grind mine with a mortar and pestle, so this is why I am scooping this out instead of sprinkling this on. And again, pepper is something you can add more of if you wish. And just sprinkle that on. Ta ta ta. And taking my teaspoon measure again, I'm going to go with my garlic powder. I really like garlic, so I'm doing a full teaspoon. Actually, I'm going to do a slightly heavy teaspoon. And I'm putting it in right in there. Delicious. You could, of course, if you have fresh garlic on hand, cut up some cloves or smash some, but that is not necessary. Garlic powder works just fine. Then also take the onion powder. Similarly, if you wanted this to include onions that you maybe browned or cooked a little bit on the stove, that would also be a delicious option. I'm just using onion powder. For me, that was good enough. Now that we have our ingredients in and we've moved them safely out of the way, take your other large bowl, place that on top. Before I do what I'm going to do, I will tell you, you could, of course, use something like a spatula to stir up your food, or to save on a dish, feel free to use some spring-loaded tongs. These things are worth the purchase if you don't have any. I did not think they were necessary before I got a pair, and now I love them. But rather than using any of those implements, I put the bowl on top, and quite frankly, we are just going to give it a little shake. Woo! And shaky shake. There's no strong technique to this. This is just going to mix the cauliflower, get oil and our seasonings onto all of it. And if you do it enough, you're going to get your workout for the day. It's a good cardio. But I do this, quite frankly, to just save on a dish. If I don't have to clean, I won't. It's because I don't like to clean. Then we take off our top bowl. That was basically our lid. Set that to the side. And now we have our cauliflower. It's all nicely seasoned. It's got its oil, it's coated in seasonings, ready to go into our pan. I will grab my pan and dump, as I make all this noise, dump my cauliflower right on in. And now you are going to want that rubber spatula, and scoop that right on in to your pan. Making sure you get all that good stuff. And with this, you're going to want to spread out your cauliflower so it's pretty much in an even layer. Why do we do this? Same reason we cut the pieces into mostly bite-sized pieces and even pieces. So this all cooks nicely and consistently. This is the first part. You're basically done. Now we are going to go and pop this into the oven. Here we have my oven. It is preheated to 450 degrees. I will open it up. I do not have a fancy oven, as you can see. It is just your standard electric oven. Someday I hope to upgrade, but I'm not there yet. And I put my cauliflower in right on that middle rack. Close the oven, and I will set my timer. Now that my cauliflower is in the oven, I will set my timer for about 10 to 12 minutes. I know my oven, so I'm going to set it for 12 minutes. At 12 minutes, when that timer goes off, I will stir the cauliflower and I will get together the ingredients I need for the sauce, which makes this dish so delicious. And 4, 3, 2, 1, I am going to go and check on the cauliflower. I just checked on the cauliflower and gave it a quick stir because it wasn't ready yet, but we wanted to stir it so all of the cauliflower gets cooked evenly. I set my timer, and it's a little hard to see, but I set it for about 8 minutes more, just so my cauliflower can finish cooking. While the cauliflower is cooking, we are going to move on to the delicious sauce. So, you will need butter. If you are not comfortable using butter, feel free to use more of your vegetable oil or olive oil or coconut oil if you prefer. I will give you a slight warning with coconut oil. It can have a little bit of a coconut taste, which is okay, but just keep that in mind. If you don't want any flavor resembling coconut, don't use coconut oil. So now I'm going to use butter. If you're not comfortable using butter or you're not used to using it, but we'll still use it, an easy way to measure it is on the side, it has this TBSP. There you go. That stands for tablespoon. I hear my cat is complaining that I'm not feeding it. That stands for tablespoon. I'm going to use 3 tablespoons for my recipe. Similarly, if you prefer yours a little more greasy, add a little more. If you like yours a little bit less greasy, you could go down to just 2 tablespoons of butter, and that would be fine. Keep in mind the butter is important because it helps the sauce adhere to your cauliflower. So I put that in my microwave safe bowl, and this is also the same bowl I use to help shake our cauliflower and get it coated with the oil to begin with. Now you're going to take a hot sauce. I recommend a mild hot sauce. Similar to how I mentioned with salt, you can always add more heat, but you cannot take the heat away. And that is something I have learned through experience, and I like spicy food, so learn from my mistakes. I'm going to then take a mild hot sauce. I recommend one that's like cayenne and vinegar based. You can always check the ingredients. I can link specifically the brand that I like to use in the bottom. And you take your measuring spoons, and I am going to add, and this is again due to personal preference, add as much or as little as you like. I am going to add, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm actually going to add a 5th tablespoon. So 5 tablespoons of your mild hot sauce in with your butter. This I am going to put into the microwave because I want the butter to melt and I want the hot sauce and butter to mix together. I will do that, and now I recommend only doing this in intervals of about 10 to 20 seconds at a time. Reason being, the butter can explode in your microwave, which creates an awful mess. If you want to avoid some of that mess, I recommend putting a plate right on top. That's going to help the heat better disperse and melt it a little more evenly. It's also going to stop the food from exploding and causing a mess in your microwave. If you get the butter to explode, a plate is way easier than cleaning inside that little box. So I'm going to get this melted, and when this is a liquid, I will meet you back. Now I've pulled my butter and hot sauce out of the microwave. I have been microwaving it, and I don't know if you can see, but it did definitely splatter. Not a lot, but a little bit on the plate. And I, for one, would much rather clean that plate than the inside of my microwave. And I'm just going to stir this using my spatula that I had already gotten out. Stir until the butter and the hot sauce comes together. Now my timer also just went off, so I am going to go and check on my cauliflower that is baking. So now we can see the cauliflower is pulled out, and to me, I think it is done. You can see it's starting to get nicely brown, some of the bits. Here's another good example. We're getting some nice browning on it. And there's steam. It's also soft. If I squeeze with my tongs, I can smush a piece. So that is the softness that I am hoping for. You can, of course, cook yours a little bit longer, or you can also pull it out a little faster if you want it a little bit firmer. Your choice, your food. Make yourself happy. So now I am going to take my melted hot sauce, and I'm going to dump this ever so on my cauliflower. I'm scraping out all that yummy goodness. You could, of course, use a brush to brush the hot sauce on, and I need a hot pad to hold the pan, so I'm going to stir this. But I used to do that, and I felt like the hot sauce just did not quite adhere to the cauliflower as much as I wanted. And I felt like it took way longer than just simply putting it on, giving all of this a good stir. Now, after you are happy with how that is stirred and coated and looks, Then we are going to put this back into the oven for just a couple minutes. Not very long at all, but we just want the flavors to cook together a little bit better. So I am going to do that now, and I'll meet you when I pull it out. I just pulled out my cauliflower. It is smoking. It is delicious. I can pick it up. I can even, if I want, take a bite to make sure it's done to as much as I preferred. I'm going to put this on a plate and give you a few suggestions of how to eat this. Oh, I was just about to take a bite into my delicious buffalo cauliflower. It is so good. I've paired mine with some avocado and a couple of pieces of bacon that I made. Don't worry, I'll tell you how to make bacon in a non-messy way in the future. You could, of course, pair this with some sour cream or some ranch, depending on what your preference is. Or you could put this in a wrap and add a little chicken, or leave out the chicken, have a great vegetarian dish. This was a fun, easy dish to make. I hope you also get to. Thank you so much for watching and joining me. Please subscribe to me down below and ring that bell. Also, check me out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those fun places. Let me know if you like this video, if you want to see more like this, if you'd like to see a different recipe covered or different types of food, also different craft things. Join me again next week, same time, same place. See you then. Thank you for watching. Bye.